Apache woman with 3 children. Can we warm up? The cowboy's response changed everything that night. The snow had been falling since before sunset, soft at first and then heavier, turning the forest into a silent, white maze where every sound felt swallowed before it could travel far. The cowboy had been riding hard all day, his horse finally tied near a cluster of pine trees. While he knelt close to a small fire, coaxing weak flames to stay alive against the cold wind, his coat was stiff with frost, his fingers numb despite the fire, and his mind heavy with thoughts he had tried to outrun for months. That was when he noticed movement beyond the firelight, shadows shifting between the trees, cautious and slow as if afraid of being seen. His hand instinctively moved toward his side, but he stopped himself, forcing his breathing to steady. From the darkness emerged a woman, Apache by her dress and bearing, her posture proud even though exhaustion weighed her down. 3 children clung close to her, their steps uneven, their faces pale and tight with cold. She stopped just outside the reach of the firelight, her eyes fixed on the flames as if they were something sacred. For a moment none of them spoke. The wind sighed through the trees, and the fire cracked softly. Then the woman stepped forward, lifting her hand not in threat, not in surrender, but in quiet appeal. Her voice, when it came, was low and careful, shaped by fear learned the hard way. She asked if they could warm up. The cowboy studied them in silence, taking in every detail. The way the children leaned into one another, the way the woman positioned herself slightly in front of them without thinking, the way her eyes never stopped searching his face for danger. He had seen fear before, had caused it too, though he rarely admitted that to himself. In another life, another winter, he might have answered differently. He might have told them to move on, might have pointed them toward the mountains or pretended he hadn't seen them at all. But something about the children, their quiet, their discipline, their refusal to cry, pressed against a place inside him he thought was long dead. He nodded once and shifted aside, opening space near the fire. The woman did not thank him right away. She waited, watching his hands, his posture, his eyes, as if gratitude could wait until safety was certain. Only when the children felt the warmth and edged closer did she finally lower her guard, enough to guide them forward. They settled near the fire, holding their hands out cautiously, as though afraid the warmth might disappear if they trusted it too much. The cowboy added more wood, the flames growing brighter, and for the first time that night, the children's faces softened. One of them glanced up at him, curiosity flickering through the fatigue, but quickly looked away again, taught not to stare. The woman remained standing, her gaze never leaving him, her body language a careful balance between gratitude and readiness to flee. He told her she could sit if she wanted. She hesitated, then slowly lowered herself to the snow, keeping her children within arm's reach. They said nothing more, yet the silence between them was not empty. It was heavy with history, of stolen land, broken treaties, blood spilled by men wearing faces, like his in uniforms, he had once ridden alongside. The cowboy felt that weight settle on his shoulders, heavier than the snow piling up around them. He realized then that this was no chance meeting. The forest had brought them together for a reason he did not yet understand. As the fire burned stronger, the wind eased slightly, and the night stretched on, something unseen shifted. The woman watched him closely, not knowing that the choice he was about to make would follow him for the rest of his life, and the cowboy stared into the fire, unaware that the moment he said yes had already changed everything. The fire crackled louder as the night deepened, its glow pushing back the darkness, just enough to make the small clearing feel like a fragile island in a frozen sea. The cowboy kept feeding the flames, not because he needed the warmth anymore, but because every time the fire weakened, the children edged closer together, their shoulders tightening as if the cold carried memories sharper than the wind. He noticed the smallest one shivering despite the heat, and quietly removed his outer coat, placing it near them without a word. The woman stiffened at the movement, her eyes narrowing, her hand instinctively reaching toward the knife hidden beneath her dress. He froze, understanding instantly how easily fear could turn into violence out here. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped back, palms open, letting the coat rest untouched between them like an offering that could be refused. After a long moment, the woman exhaled, a breath she had been holding for far too long, and pulled the coat closer, wrapping it around the smallest child with careful hands. Her voice finally broke the silence, not with thanks, but with a quiet explanation. She said they had been walking since before dawn, moving away from soldiers who had burned what little shelter they had left behind. She spoke plainly, without anger, without tears, as if those emotions had already been spent. The cowboy listened, jaw tight, the words cutting deeper than any accusation could. He knew those soldiers. He had ridden with men like them, laughed with them, followed orders that felt easier than questioning. Hearing the cost of those choices, spoken so simply, made the fire's warmth feel undeserved. One of the older children reached toward the flames and pulled back quickly, startled by the heat, and the cowboy found himself smiling despite the heaviness in his chest. The woman noticed and studied his face again, searching for mockery, finding none. She asked where he was headed. He told her the truth, that he didn't know anymore. He had been running from a past that no longer let him sleep and toward a future he couldn't yet name. The honesty surprised them both. Snow began to fall harder, thick flakes swirling through the firelight, and the forest seemed to close in, branches creaking under the weight. The woman glanced at the sky and then at her children, calculation clear in her eyes. She said they couldn't stay exposed much longer. The cowboy nodded and pointed toward a narrow ridge nearby where the trees grew denser and the wind cut less fiercely. He offered to lead them there, just for the night. The offer hung between them, dangerous and necessary all at once. Trusting him could mean survival, or disaster. Refusing could mean freezing before morning. The woman stood, helping the children to their feet, and for the first time met his eyes directly. In that look was not forgiveness, not trust, but resolve. She agreed on her terms. He would walk ahead, hands visible, no sudden movements. He accepted without argument. The journey was slow, each step through the snow heavy, the children stumbling often. When one slipped, the cowboy reached out instinctively, then stopped himself, waiting until the woman nodded before helping the child back up. By the time they reached the shelter of the trees, his legs burned and his breath came in sharp bursts, but he said nothing. They built another fire, better protected this time, and the woman allowed herself to relax just enough to let the children sleep, their heads resting against her legs. As they drifted off, the forest quieted, the storm easing as if satisfied. The cowboy sat across from her, the fire between them, and the distance felt smaller now, not measured in feet but in shared silence. She told him her name, and after a pause he told her his. Names carried weight out here, and both understood what it meant to offer one. As the children slept, the woman asked him why he had helped them. He stared into the fire for a long time before answering. He said he didn't know if helping tonight could make up for what he'd done before, but he knew turning them away would have made him the man he was trying to leave behind. The woman said nothing, but something in her expression shifted. Not softened, not hardened, just changed. Above them the snow slowed, the stars peeking through the clouds, and the cowboy realized that whatever came next, danger, pursuit, or worse, this night had already set a path none of them could step away from. Morning came quietly, not with light but with sound. The faint crack of ice shifting on branches, the distant call of a bird brave enough to test the cold, and the slow, uneven breathing of 3 children still asleep beside the dying fire. The cowboy had not slept. He sat with his back against a tree, eyes open, listening for anything that didn't belong. At some point before dawn, hoofbeats reached him, distant but unmistakable, carried by the wind. He stiffened, counting the rhythm, the number of riders, the weight of them. The woman noticed instantly. She rose without waking the children, her movements fluid despite exhaustion, her eyes asking the question she already knew the answer to. He told her soldiers were nearby, maybe tracking, maybe just passing through, but close enough to matter. Fear flashed across her face, sharp and familiar, then settled into something colder and steadier. She began waking the children, whispering to them in a language the cowboy did not understand, but somehow felt the meaning of all the same. He told her they could run east, that the ridge would hide their tracks for a while, and when she hesitated, he added that he would go west, draw attention, make it look like he was alone. The weight of what he was offering hung heavy between them. This was not just help, it was risk with no promise of reward. The woman studied him, truly studied him, not as a threat or a stranger, but as a man standing at a crossroads. She asked him why again, her voice quiet but steady. He answered honestly, saying some nights never let you walk away the same, and if he was going to live with the past, he would not add this to it. The children were awake now, confusion clouding their faces as they sensed danger. The woman pulled them close, speaking softly, then looked back at the cowboy and nodded once. No words of gratitude passed between them, because none were needed. He erased their tracks where he could, scattering snow with careful steps, then walked west openly, leaving prints meant to be seen. The forest felt different as he moved away, heavier, watchful. The hoofbeats grew louder, voices carrying now, sharp and impatient. When the soldiers appeared, rifles slung and eyes cold, recognition flickered. They knew him. He had ridden with some of them once. They asked if he had seen anyone pass through. He met their gaze and shook his head, his voice calm, his story simple. They did not believe him at first. One dismounted, studying the ground, the fire's remains, the scattered snow. The cowboy felt the moment stretch thin as ice. Then he did something he had never done before. He told them to leave it alone. Said the storm had erased everything. Said there was nothing worth chasing out here but death. The authority in his voice surprised even him. A tense silence followed, then a curse. Then the soldiers mounted up and rode on, uninterested in arguing with a man who looked like he had nothing left to lose. The cowboy stood there long after they disappeared, his legs trembling, his breath ragged. When he finally turned back east, he did not follow the woman and children. He knew better than to risk it. Instead, he sat by the cold ashes of the fire until the sun climbed higher, melting frost from the trees. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a woman and 3 children were moving toward another chance at survival, carrying with them the memory of a man who chose differently when it mattered. The cowboy rose at last, shouldering his burden and his hope together, and walked on, not toward redemption. He knew better than to believe in something so clean, but toward a life shaped by one choice made in the snow. He would carry that night with him always, not as a story of rescue or heroism, but as proof that even in the coldest places, a single moment of courage could change the direction of many lives, including his own.